I call Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Madam Speaker. Ngā mihi nui, kia koutou, kia ora. Now, budgets are always a big deal in this place. I mean, there's so much pomp and ceremony and grandeur. I mean, the Finance Minister's got a special, speech tied up in a ribbon. There's the lock-up, the debate, what's the Finance Minister what type of tie is he going to wear? What's the meal he's going to have to celebrate? Is it sausage rolls or pies? But I think for many people out in the public, it doesn't resonate as much with them. What they want to know is, what's the budget going to do for me? And that's what I want to touch on in this speech, because that's what I think Kiwis really want to know. And sitting there, hearing the Finance Minister in the various speeches, I've thought about the people whose homes I've visited, where families have literally opened up their doors to invite me in to tell them their story. Now, I was thinking of those families, one in particular in South Wellington, where a family didn't use most of the house. They all slept, the whole family with I think 3 or 4 kids, in the lounge, because that was the only room they could afford to heat. This was a room covered with black mould on their roof. I think of other people I've visited, such as students down in South, where literally you could tear chunks of wood off the timber framing around the windows because it was so cold, so damp. Talking to people who literally were salting the toilet at night because their house was so unaffordable to heat, they were scared their pipes were going to freeze over in the middle of winter. And what I was thinking about those people is, this is a budget that delivers for them. Because I'm proud to stand here today as part of a government which has brought back the home insulation scheme, one of the most successful government policies we've seen in the modern time. Now, this was the greenest budget in New Zealand's history, with wins for conservation for our threatened animals and our beautiful treasured threatened places, wins for the green investment and clean tech sector, a budget that invested in research and development, where family and domestic violence was actually addressed, special education saw a big boost, the greenest budget in New Zealand's history. Insulation was one of those areas where I think it really epitomises good green solutions, because it's great for the environment, it's great for the economy, it's great for society, it's got huge health benefits for those families who benefit, huge educational benefits for those kids when they go to school. This isn't just a win-win, this is a win-win-win-win-win. This is why it's so great to see in the budget $142 million extra for insulation. Because, look, this House should be able to say that every New Zealander deserves to live in a warm, dry, well-ventilated house. Now, I'll do an acknowledgement to the National Party. We worked with them back in 2009 with Jeanette Fitzsimons on insulating 180,000 Kiwi homes. It made a huge benefit to hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders. The tragic thing was, though, the job wasn't finished. The funding was cut before all the houses that needed it could be done. We know we had about 1 million substandard houses in New Zealand. And probably one of the greatest myopic acts in New Zealand's history, we didn't even have insulation in our building code until 1978. The job was started, but the job wasn't finished. Under this government, the job will be finished. And that's why I'm proud to say that the $142 million for home insulation is going to make a huge difference to those Kiwis who suffer from black mould, whose kids are getting sick and missing school, the workers who can't go to work because they're suffering from the health impacts. It's going to be one of those win-win-win-win-win schemes. So I'd like to acknowledge our coalition and confidence and supply partners in the government that have rolled out this home insulation scheme. I'd like to acknowledge the Honourable Megan Woods, the Minister for Energy and Resources, who's rolled it out. What this new scheme, the Warmer Kiwi Home Scheme, will deliver is 2/3 of the cost for underfloor and ceiling insulation and for a clean heating device. When you work with community partners, you can see up to 100% of the cost of insulation covered. When you couple this with the new winter energy payment that the government's instigated, we are going to solve energy poverty in New Zealand. What we've seen is some of the fastest growth rates of energy poverty in the developed world. In fact, our electricity prices rose the 5th highest in the entire developed world. The only 4 countries above us were ex-Soviet countries coming out of communism. This is a major problem facing our country. It's been estimated 1/5 or 20% of New Zealand families are suffering in energy poverty, so this government is making a clear statement. Every New Zealander deserves to grow up in a warm, dry, ventilated home, but also no New Zealand family should be suffering in energy poverty. Home insulation, a winter energy grant, is going to make a huge difference. Another area that I'm incredibly passionate about is the state of our environment, and every New Zealander can see it with the closed signs on rivers, the scientific reports that point out that 2/3 of our lowland streams and rivers are considered unsafe for swimming in, Even the National Party now acknowledges the rise of pollution and the impact on our environment. The problem is, for 9 years, they didn't do anything about it, despite seeing the clear evidence. In fact, what they did was throw taxpayer monies at subsidising intensive agriculture to promote more pollution into our environment. We saw plenty of talk the talk under National, but none of the actual walk the walk, and our waterways are suffering as a result. So that's why I'm proud to stand here as part of a confidence and supply partner of the government, rolling out additional funding for the Sustainable Farming Fund. Now, the Green Party's always acknowledged those good farmers, and there's heaps of them out there doing fantastic work. In fact, just a couple of weekends ago, I was in the Hawke's Bay talking to great farmers there about the work they're doing to protect the environment. Because what these farmers want to do is pass on a farm to their future, to their kids, to future generations, and they have a special relationship with the land, and they want to protect it for future generations. It's great that this government's announced an additional $15 million for the Sustainable Farming Fund. These projects, some of the leading edge of sustainable farming practice and research and development, will then flow through the entire farming sector, cleaning up our primary industries. Because ultimately, for me, the budget in this place is all about the ceremony, which we get wrapped up on, but we should focus on what it means for everyday New Zealanders. And what this budget means is warmer, drier homes, insulation under the roof. It means our waterways are going to be cleaner and our farms more sustainable. So, look, it's a great budget, and it's going to make a huge difference for this country. Kia ora.
I call the Honourable Jackie Dean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Chris Hipkins said it all, I believe, when he said today, quote, "There is a big difference